Dan Ashton. I'm new to UKIP, and I've just helped organise this little debate on the subject of the future of UKIP. Not that I feel in any great position to make any claims, but I've become quite enthusiastic about UKIP in general and all the people I've met in it. So, introducing to my left, at least, is Danny, and forget his surname.
Slate.
Danny Slate. Okay, so he's representing the side of the debate which is more pro-Walker approach to UKIP future, rather than I'm on the pro-Batten brain side. And in my bottom left-hand corner, at least on my screen, is Mike Walker, who I've recently met, who's not a million miles away from me. I'm in the Salisbury area. He's in devisers. He's a chairman. He's got lots of experience, past history to my enthusiasm. Is that right?
I was. I was the devisers chairman up to 2 months ago, and now I'm the branch secretary for Chippenham. But I know quite a bit about devisers. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, anyway, he's that, and he runs the website for the Southwest area as well. So you've got a kind of fairly good knowledge of the wider area and out here in the sticks.
Thank you.
Sorry, Danny, I didn't really find out much about you. Then how long have you been in the party and stuff?
So I've been in the party since July last year, so just over a year I've been a member. I am currently the interim chairman of UKIP Loughborough District, trying to revive that branch from the ex-chairman hopping ship over to the Brexit Party. And yeah, that kind of helps cement why I feel the way I do, because a lot of branches, including myself, have fell whilst Batten's leader. And that's part of the reason why I'm on this side of the debate.
Fair enough. And all those things need to be discussed, and regardless of which side you're on, it's a concern for everybody. It's just a matter of whether you sort of say, well, it's because of Batten or because of other forces that are going on.
100%.
Way, we still need to kind of figure out what the causes are and what the way forward is. And in my bottom right-hand corner, we have the shockingly young and talented Rhys Coombs, who I only really know about from, looking at videos and seeing that his involvement from, a young age, and sort of seems to have, again, a good knowledge and, representing a sort of very youthful element to UKIP, which possibly in the media it might be portrayed as a lot of old grey hairs waving Union Jacks around, but that's not been my personal experience, and find a pretty broad range of ages and so far. So it'd be good to see that image coming across more as UKIP going forward. What do you think?
Yeah, very much. I mean, I've been a member for just over 3 years now, and I suppose many of you will have heard last year there was a so-called youthquake within UKIP, where the membership of our youth wing tripled in the space of a few months, of course, under Batten's leadership. And UKIP is very much a party for young people, which is something hopefully I represent just a little bit about.
Indeed, yeah, I get the feeling that there's a sort of, again, because of all these what I'm loosely calling free speech advocates. I found it fascinating, all these people that I've been following for so long have sort of gravitated to UKIP, and I couldn't quite figure out how it happened, and there's all these different sort of legends and how they gravitated over to this sort of party that almost seems to be on the brink of collapse due to obviously the Farage taking the the ideas out. So why didn't they all join the Brexit Party? Why didn't they join?
Because they have principles.
The Conservatives. There's something. Why? I'm just fascinated. Why is that? And then I ended up just driving down, meeting Milo. I've met Katie Hopkins. I mean, such a ball in the last 6 weeks. Meeting all these amazing people. And I mean, where else are you going to have that kind of interaction with people? I mean, Milo was like one of the top 10 people who are supposed to have influenced the Trump elections. He's worked for Breitbart, and he's popping over to a relatively insignificant, event when he's been on CNN and all this stuff. And I'm still slightly amazed how this has occurred within UKIP. I mean,
UKIP is very much a different force in politics. It's completely different to anything that's existed before in British politics. We're a grassroots up, approach to politics. We look at it from the point of view of everyone has something to offer rather than everyone will work for us. If you go to the Tory party, you're an insignificant member. You're one of a couple of 100,000 or whatever they're on, and you just do as you're told. In UKIP, you are a force to be reckoned with. You are somebody to be listened to, and that works out. That people offer a lot of different things they can do to the party, and that's reflected. But anyway, shall we move on to the main debate?
Yes.
Yeah. So I suppose that is the question. I mean, me and Reese have sort of laid out why we sort of like the Batten type direction. So why don't one of you two sort of raise, what your reservations are and why you think that the Batten's approach has been detrimental, and how you think that that's because of Batten rather than other circumstances, Brexit Party and stuff like that.
Can I say something? I agree with what Reese has just said. I think it's a fantastic party in that the members can now have their voice heard, and we can actually influence policy. I think it's a fantastic move forward. But we need to really start moving forward and actually getting power so that other people can hear what we have to say. And we need councillors and we need MPs. Now, in order to do that, we've got to be pragmatic. Now, the enemy have got our range and sight. Because of our association with Tommy Robinson, and I'm saying now, I think Tommy Robinson is great. However, I think when he comes out of prison, he should get with his wife and children and look after them, stop being persecuted by the establishment, and we should take over and fight the battles for him. And we shouldn't be associated with him because of this perception that we're racist, whether I know it's wrong, it's totally wrong, but we now need to break the link with Tommy Robinson and move forward. That's what I think.
But that's no different to what anybody in the Tory party or the Labour Party or the Lib Dems, that's their approach to politics. Is if we believe something but it doesn't get us votes, let's just drop that and we'll do something else that we don't believe in to get votes. And I think UKIP's appeal during the referendum, UKIP's appeal during 2015 election, and at all the times we were popular, our appeal was that we spoke what we believed. And sometimes that wasn't popular. You look at Nigel's comments about the NHS, those comments were blasted in the press. Loads of people were fuming at them. But the reason people respected it, not necessarily was because they believed and agreed with him, but was because they respected the fact he said what he thought. And that's why UKIP was popular. That's why Winston Churchill was popular against all odds. That's why so many great leaders in the past all around the world have been popular. Is because they believe in something and they always stand for that. And that belief isn't always popular, but the fact they are unashamed of that belief is what's popular. You can't just drop something because you're worried it might not get you votes. You've got to stand by it. That's what honesty in politics is all about.
It's not necessarily about. All I was going to say is it's not just about having the principled position to stand by the convictions that you make. What a lot of people, especially in regards to Tommy Robinson, is it's about the rhetoric. It's about how you bring it across. I mean. Comments that the Batten make and Tommy Robinson's whole idea of Islam being a death cult, that's wrong. That is not something that we should be espousing to. Sure, there are problems within Islam. There are things that we can do to open up a discussion behind that, and that would be much, much more effective and would appeal much more to the United Kingdom's Overton window in discussing politics. But just outright labeling an entire it's an entire demographic of people a death cult when there are moderates on that side.
That's not what he said.
Well agree with us if we opened it up.
Button has... I sort of agree to a certain sense. I think there's a sort of third way that I haven't really seen people quite discuss yet. I think British people have got to a point where they felt that they're so afraid that they're not allowed to talk about Islam, that they've almost gone the other way. And it's like a breath of fresh air just to be able to sort of talk about a lot of the negative things that have come from it. But I think once we've kind of had our little outburst and we've looked at the sort of, you know, more harsher critique of Islam, which it is fair to make. I mean, it's fair to make a harsh critique of anything. But then I think we do also have to we have to show that we're not afraid to talk about it. But then we do actually need an approach which is actually going to be effective. And so to that extent, I don't know. I mean, I think Tommy Robinson is doing his own thing in his own way, and he's raising massive awareness. And I don't think he's ever going to be put in a box. And at the same time, I don't think necessarily his approach might work for a political party. I also think that he has to be brought in from the cold. And in theory, if he could be sort of his approach could be sort of moderated slightly, or even brought into UKIP, I think that Tommy Robinson should be a part of UKIP somehow, maybe even gradually. But it sort of depends whether, you know, he's able to sort of. I mean, he has talks with that Muslim preacher, the Islam of peace and everything, and the Islam of peace guy is trying to say, well, look, you have to, if you're going to be effective, you can't just go randomly saying, you're not just going to suddenly round up every Muslim and kick them out of the country. So go to something like stop funding halal, a really practical approach. And I think you should focus on really practical approaches.
But I think that's what we have been doing. Yeah. I think that's what we have been doing. And I will pick up on something that Danny said is he said we shouldn't be labeling an entire demographic of people. Well, we're not. Islam as an ideology is not the people. And if you look at, I appreciate Batten has said Islam is a death cult, right? I'm not saying he's wrong. But let's not focus on that. Let's focus on generally the work he's been doing, right? Most of the things that Batten's campaigning for are a campaign against halal meat. UKIP's done a massive full-on campaign, which I'm glad I was a part of, against halal meat. You know, we launched a massive Facebook page, a massive leaflet campaign. We did so much for that, and it got really, really popular. We did a street stall based on that in my constituency. The reception that got was incredible, and it was all using the policies developed by Batten. Yeah, and I appreciate that. But I appreciate Batten has said certain things that are, you know, on the fringe of it, I suppose you could call it. But if you look at the general work he's been doing, they are practical solutions. They are hard policies that you can look at and you can't argue with because they're brilliant. You know, that's generally what Batten's doing.
Can I say?
Yeah, go on.
Can I say UKIP have got to focus on the cause of the disease and not the symptoms. The cultural conflict between Muslims and the indigenous population, it's a symptom of the disease. And the disease is mass uncontrolled immigration into this country. When you're bringing together lots of different cultures with different religious and moral values in the same geographical location, you're going to get this. Now, our strength, if we are brave enough and just really focus on it, is the fact that there's 300,000 plus people coming into this country. Now, we've got all the facts for this from Migration Watch, and all we have to do is just focus on that and then say, as a result of this, you're getting cultural conflict with Muslims and white people. As a result of this, you're 64 times more likely to die of air pollution in this country. As a result of this, etc., etc. We have to build a house every 6 minutes, etc. And just focus on the one thing that no other party's focusing on, and that's immigration, which is out of control due to globalists wanting to bring in cheap labor to lower wages and increase shareholders' profits. That's what we should be focusing on. Then we're going to win, and we're going to start getting votes.
That's a good point. You change the national argument, but if you focus on something too extreme, you're going to lose people. No, I think that's a very good point.
That's not extreme.
I wouldn't say we can't discuss it, and I think we can talk to moderate Muslims. I think we can kind of have the best of everything. I think we can have a very firm line on discussing certain problems with Islam, and I think we can have a moderate line in reaching. I mean, looking at the Katie Hopkins talk with the guys from the, the protesting against the Muslim schools. I mean, there's common ground there, and also I think
there is.
I think you can be firm, and you can have common ground. And the Liberals would imagine if we had good relations with a few Muslim communities. I mean, what would the Liberals do?
Dan,
it would just be like
brilliant idea.
Like dynamite. They'd
brilliant idea.
Because Labour's approach is, so if we say nothing, they'll give us votes, and then the Conservatives does more or less the same thing. How many Muslims can we get in the cabinet? Just that there's no genuine sort of connection with them. We could connect because if UKIP's genuinely quite a true conservative party, we should be able to connect with the conservative element of Islam.
Let's look at what's happening. The biggest issue at the moment with that exact thing you were just talking about, with the conservative movement within Islam, is of course this case of the LGBT parents in the school in Birmingham. So you've got two groups. You've got the LGBT activists who are saying that all children should be taught about transgenderism and LGBT and that from 5 years old, which is bonkers. And then you've got the other side of that, which is effectively the hardcore Muslims, I suppose you might call them, who are campaigning to say, no, that is not the state's place to dictate to our children and us how we should raise our kids. No, we'll talk to them about these issues in the way that we want to when we're ready. It's not the state's place, right? And as much as I disagree with those families on lots of other issues, I agree with them on that. And so does UKIP. And that's why Gerard Batten's team have been going up there, talking to those families, meeting them, shooting videos with them, campaigning with them against this issue. UKIP is working with Muslims. And that's something that Gerard Batten's team have been doing. Alan Craig and Sargon have been up there doing that on several different occasions, publicly backing them. That's the sort of thing that UKIP is doing to work with Muslims in society.
That's brilliant. And I would say, then there you go. There's an argument against the idea that Batten's just a radical. And he's not. I didn't really know that Batten had something to do with that.
I don't think Batten himself does, but Batten's team do. And I'm sure if Batten had the time, he'd be up there doing it too.
Fair enough.
Can I say something? I know you want to speak. Can I say something? Can we now start having a little talk about Mr. Carl Benjamin? Is that who you're referring to?
Trying to get on the this. He's got I keep trying to tell him he's a gentleman and everything. Come on then, man. Get it out.
Right, I'm not going to say anything. Over to you three for a while, then I'll chip in. Miss the Sargon of Akkad. Away you go.
That's the one. He's,
Who wants to go for it?
He is probably the biggest, besides Milo. He's probably the biggest, I suppose, the celebrity we have in the party. He's got a massive online reach. I think he's almost a million subscribers on YouTube now, with his videos consistently getting hundreds of thousands of views. And during the MEP elections, he reached probably well over a few million people just on his social media stuff, as well as the thousands and thousands of people who went out and met in the streets, campaigning every single day in a different part of his constituency that he stood in, right, which was the Southwest, where quite a few of us are based by the sounds of it, including me. And, when he came to these places, he set up a table, he got 2 microphones, and he said, whoever you are, whatever your political views, come down, let's have a chat. And he spoke to people right across the political spectrum, from hard right to hard left and everything in the middle, libertarian, authoritarian, everyone on the spectrum, right? And he spoke to them all, and he had a genuine, decent, human conversation with them about whatever issue they wanted to talk about. And that was massively popular. And that's the sort of thing that UKIP needs to be doing. And
what UKIP needs to be doing is allowing their actual proper MEP, long-standing politicians to be able to run in MEP elections, not sidelining them and alienating them.
Which ones?
For some random celeb.
Which ones do you mean? The ones that didn't give their money that they signed up to the party, the ones that never ever visit their branch meetings, the ones that didn't ever turn up to any UKIP conferences, the ones that didn't ever support the party on social media. Is that the ones you're talking about?
Yeah, I paid 60 quid next to Piers Watch out at these fun.
Well, there's a few that are good. I'm not going to criticize them all, because there were some that were fantastic, and it's a shame they're gone. But there were quite a few.
I'm sure there were some that weren't up to scratch. But the MEP lists were they were terrible.
Yeah, I agree.
Almost everyone can agree that it was terrible. And why was it terrible?
because it wasn't chosen by Batten though. That was chosen by the NEC. Well, the members of the NEC who weren't candidates. That was chosen by Kirsten and a few other NEC members. Gerard was one on a panel of many, and that decision was not Gerard's, because if you look at the candidates who weren't selected, quite a few of them were those who were closest to Gerard.
Rhys, everything you've said is true about Carl Benjamin. He's lucid, he's articulate, he's a smooth operator, and he has the potential to be a brilliant politician. Yet he has annihilated this party with a stupid series of tweets to the Labour politician Jess Phillips, for which he will not apologise. And as soon as he gets over his hubris and starts apologising, then this party can pick itself up. He has to sort himself out ASAP, because all that matters is getting councillors and politicians. And he's been in the broadsheets, in the Times, Guardian, whatever, over a number of months, and he affected 2 votes. One was the by-election results and one was the EU election results. And all he has to do is start apologising. Furthermore, Mark Meacham, who's trained his dog to raise its paw when you say gas the Jews, it is absolutely appalling. And those 2 EU candidates need to be sorted out ASAP. We need a bit of discipline in this party. And then once they've apologised, we can move on.
But they were joking. They were joking. You have to make that distinction. And I'm not saying it's a joke.
I don't have to make it. The BBC has to make it. The media are loving things like that. We have to stop any politician who goes absent without leave, and they just open their mouth and say what they like. We've got a responsibility. We've got sponsors. We've got people who want to vote UKIP, and all they see is a little snippet. It may have been taken out of context. If it has been taken out of context, they should apologise right now and end it.
No. Why should we apologise for someone else lying about it? That's not our fault. We shouldn't apologise. We should fight back, stand our ground. We've done nothing wrong, so why apologise? Somebody who was a YouTuber,
about a rape tweet.
Yes, there was a massive context to that, and I will explain the context. When that tweet was sent,
we haven't go into that too much. I mean, we've heard that so many times. I mean, the fact is, we know he's done it. It's a dumb tweet, whatever. Personally, I just can't really see the point in focusing too much attention on it. In a sense, if you've got a lot of free speech advocates, they're going to say something daft at some point anyway, because they say thousands and thousands of things. You're going to be able to pick something out. There's other great comedians and stuff that the journalists have trawled through years and years of what they've said. They pick out one thing. If you're going to have a party of free speech and you're going to have exciting people who have got millions of followers, and the media doesn't like them, they will find something to attack them with anyway. That's one thing. And I just don't think whether it's possible to avoid the media finding something, even if there's nothing there to find. I mean, they've tried to find one racist statement from Tommy Robinson in 10 years. They haven't found one thing. They still call him a racist and all the rest of it. So even if Mark did apologise, which goes against the Steve Batten philosophy, which is deny, never apologise. But even if you were supplicant to the media, is it going to change anything anyway? And are you just going to be in a perpetual situation where you're walking on eggshells? And at the end of the day, these guys are kind of, they are blunderbusses. They come in and they shake things up. And there's the free speech issue. Do we want to be a party where we're going to spend all our time caring whether the media, I mean, I'm just not even interested. I think there's more important things to get on with. Whether the media think one tweet from 10 years ago, I just don't care. The media obsessed over that while Trump was busy winning elections. They focused on this one thing, the only thing, that piece of dirt they could find about him.
How many voters when you spoke to them actually say, I was going to vote UKIP, but I didn't because of a tweet 5 years ago? None of them. I didn't speak to one voter, and I'm saying that honestly. I didn't speak to one voter who said that. Some voters came up to me and said, I'm not voting for you because I prefer Nigel. Some voters came to me and said, I'm not voting for you because I can't stand you, I'm a socialist, whatever. But no one came to me and said, I'm not voting for you because of Carl Benjamin or because of Mark Meacham. No one said that. That wasn't something that came up.
You think that, okay,
but there were a few MEPs that left because of it.
Yeah, a few MEPs, like I've said, who are dying to go anyway because it suited their careers to be in the Brexit party.
But it's more than that. It's more than that. The whole of the Gloucester UKIP branch totally collapsed, and there are loads of resignations because of that. Furthermore, in April, when Carl Benjamin was a Euro MEP candidate, he repeated the tweeting offence by saying, quote, to Jess Phillips, thinking about it, I'm paraphrasing, thinking about it, if I drunk enough beer, I might give it a go and rape you. Now, it's absolutely pathetic. He's made a mess. He's put his foot in it. He now needs to apologise, and we need to move on. And I'm being selfish. So I'm being selfish for this reason. All I care about, I want to be a councillor and I want to be an MP. And anything that gets in my way, any silly comments in UKIP, I want that sorted out, because perception is important, because it affects newspapers, what's put in newspapers. And if there's any lies in newspapers about UKIP, I want UKIP to start suing the newspaper or the BBC. I want us to start fighting back. But at the moment, we've got a lot of baggage and it needs sorting. I want to be a councillor.
I'm going to pick up on a couple of things you said there.
First, do you think it would be fair if Sargon just like, I mean, so that we stop the media focus on it, he just sort of made an apology, or did he have to double down on it? I mean, was that really necessary? Or I mean, I just don't really care, because I don't really care what the media think anyway. I just think we've got so many great things to get on with personally, but I have to take Mike's point seriously, and Mike is older, and you know, he's trying to say, look, come on guys, you've got to have some standard. It's what he's saying is fair enough. Personally, I wouldn't leave a party because of that. I wouldn't make a massive issue about it, but if part of the party felt like that, let's just say felt like how Mike feels, which is fair, and we said to Sargon, look, just either apologise or just shut up about that tweet. Because, no, but you know, we don't want to keep talking about it. What do you think?
There's more to it than that, because that whole video, I know you've just paraphrased about 10 seconds of video. It was I think it was a 15-minute video or something like that, and the whole video was one after another of ridiculous jokes. Right, the whole video was basically a series of bloopers. He shot on a boat in the sea outside Gibraltar, right? Made of ridiculous comments that each and every one of them was stupid. So one of the comments was he said he wants a sword fight at dawn or something along those lines with the leader of Gibraltar, right? Are we going to ask him to apologise for threatening violence against the leader of Gibraltar? No, because it was so painfully, obviously a joke. You know, everything he said in that video was ridiculous. And I don't think we need to ask him to apologise, because if we ask him to apologise, he's admitting, or he's, you know, sort of supposedly admitting that he did genuinely say he was going to rape Jess Phillips, which is not what he was actually saying in context.
Because otherwise we're just going to always be at odds. If I'm going to sort of try and be a bit moderate, if not for the media, for the sake of there has to be some standards. I mean, you know, we can't. Okay, free speech, but you know, I doubt the Sargon at his dinner table with his kids allows his kids to make gross jokes. I mean, come on, we've got to have some standards, and we've got to take into consideration the feelings of other members. So he would. Don't you think it would be fair if Sargon at least admitted on some level or in private that, you know, that he's actually, you know, that actually maybe some of what he said is probably not actually advancing the cause. I mean,
but why should
UKIP, not the media?
Why should everything that every one of us says in every context of our lives be said on purpose to advance the cause? It shouldn't be.
Because 0% in the polls.
Sargon didn't make that comment. Sargon didn't make that comment at a family dinner table. Sargon made that comment on Twitter to his followers, who know that he makes those sort of jokes, right? Sargon made that second,
which can then be taken out of context.
Which can then be taken out of context by the lying media, who would lie about us regardless of what we say. They've lied about us for donkey's years. Why should we start caring now?
Yes. Well, if they've lied to us constantly, which they have, how on earth did we manage to get the success in 2014 and 2015?
Because we were unashamed of what we said, and we stood our ground, and we fought for it.
Because we had a clean platform. No, we didn't have all of this mess with Tommy Robinson. We didn't have all this mess with Carl Benjamin, Marcus Meechan, anything like that. We played it safe, we played it steady, but that does not mean that we sacrificed any of the principles on which we stood for.
That's not what happened. That's not what happened. You look at Nigel's comments about the NHS.
It was being clean.
That's Nigel's comment.
Nigel's comment when he was leader of UKIP in the general election debate on television. That comment was massively controversial. And when it was really offensive comment, right? It was a true comment and I fully stand by it, but it was offensive and it was controversial. When he said it, he was lambasted by the media. He was furiously attacked by everyone in every other party, right? But he stood his ground and he said, you know what? I'm not apologising. It was correct. And that got him support.
He paid for it in that general election.
How?
That was the 7th time where he wasn't elected. And he even stood, I think it was Thanet.
That election was a fantastic result.
Yeah. Thanet.
But he staked his leadership. He staked his leadership position at the time.
You can't argue. You can't argue that the 2015 general election was a failure for UKIP.
No, I'm not saying it was. I'm not saying it was. But we failed to get one seat.
But
I'm saying that we ran that. We ran that entire campaign very smooth, very principled. We did not compromise. But what we didn't have in that election was all of the things around Tommy Robinson. We didn't have this, obviously, lying media and whatnot, but we weren't labelled far right. In fact, that term wasn't really recognised.
Yeah, we were labelled far right. We were very consistently labelled far right every single day in near enough every paper. We were labelled racist, we were labelled far right, we were labelled immigrant hating, we were labelled Islamophobic, homophobic, every single one of the buzzwords. We were labelled every single day in some newspaper or some TV channel, but we didn't care.
So why do we have to go and prove them right? Why do we have to go and prove them with links to Tommy Robinson?
That's not proving them right. Tommy isn't Islamophobic. That's not proving them right.
He is.
How do you define? Well, it depends how you define Islamophobic, doesn't it? If you use the mainstream definition, no, he's not.
No, I'm using a sort of almost like a pure blind, no compromise, indifference. What's the word? He's very uncompromising on his position on not liking Islam and its texts.
Yeah,
and I don't know if you saw the debate that he had with a younger Muslim woman. He basically, the Muslim woman was like, yes, Islam has its problems, and we want to try and sort that out. There are dangerous sects that do promote extremism. And Tommy Robinson, in a nutshell, not verbatim, but he was talking about how because this woman who has already admitted that there are issues within Islam and wants to try and help sort them out, that there are dangerous sects. Basically Tommy was like, no, you follow the scripture, so you're just as bad as them. That is not the approach that we should take.
I've not seen the video, so I want to be careful commenting on it. Yeah, but having seen a hell of a lot of stuff from Tommy, I've never seen anything like that as you've described it. So send me a link to it, and I'll watch it. But that's not what I've seen.
I think you've got these people going out on the streets. They've got microphones in their faces. They're writing things. They're under huge amounts of pressure. So they say the odd thing. You're in any democracy, in any free speech, you're going to get messy elements. It's going to happen. So you either sort of more or less accept that there's always going to be a messy edge. I think you should also accept that you have to be responsible for your actions. I mean, we all do dumb shit, right? We all do dumb stuff, right? And that is all part and parcel of being a messy human being. I don't want a tidy, pristine party where you can't say anything or do anything. Okay, you've got to be allowed to make mistakes. That's one of the fundamental things about a democracy, is that you're allowed to make mistakes. So it shouldn't be the be all and end all, but you also have to take responsibility for your mistakes. I know the video. I think he didn't particularly deal with that well, but I wouldn't therefore write off Tommy Robinson and say, well, this one incident, he said this, or Carl did one tweet free. I mean, the guys, if we're gonna sort of define whether we kick someone in or out because of one thing and not take into consideration all the rest of the work they're doing, then it's not going to be much of a party. So I kind of accept that they have to be accountable for some things they say and say, well, yeah, actually that approach wouldn't work, and maybe
I can define it
because groveling to the media.
I can define it with two examples. I can define it with two examples, one from Reese and one from you, Dan. What does UKIP stand for in terms of free speech? It's free speech within a moral context. So you can say anything you want as long as it's not meant to offend, it's not meant to be sarcastic, and there's a point to it. For example, Reese, I think you mentioned about Nigel Farage in debate. And was it when he was talking about HIV, people coming to this country for treatment for HIV? he was totally justified saying that, because the taxpayer in this country is paying for that, and this is not an international health service. So it was totally justified under free speech within a moral context for saying that. Now, my problem with the Carl Benjamin initial tweet to Jess Phillips, it wasn't within a moral context, and it was a slip. And all I want him to do is just say, oh, that was a stupid slip, and just move on. Because he didn't do that, what's resulted is page after page of newspaper headlines about UKIP and Carl Benjamin. That's all I want him to do is apologise, and then we can move on. That's all.
There was an absolute moral, what's the phrase, context to it. There was absolutely a context to that. And I'm going to ask you, Mike, and I'll come back after. What do you understand the context of that tweet to be? Because I don't mean this in any way to attack you. I'm saying genuinely. You want to me,
Reese?
I'm saying genuinely, what do you understand the context of that tweet to be? Because I think you might have misunderstood it.
I think I'm talking about we previously talked about the latest tweet when he was a candidate, and you said he was some YouTube video, and he mentioned about getting drunk. That's that. But there was the initial tweet,
that one,
which I think could be 2 years ago.
It was about 5 years ago, I think. But
was it about 5 years ago? And then it's been brought up, hasn't it?
What was the context of that one?
What I've heard is that Jess Phillips was mentioning something about suicide in men, and that he has had he knows somebody who's had a suicide, and he was angry about it, so he rebuffed it with that kind of tweet about raping women, something like that.
What was the tweet he said? What did he say in that tweet?
You see, the key thing is, though.
No, what did he say in the tweet? Roughly paraphrase it. What did the tweet say?
What did the tweet say? I don't know the exact words, but but if you let me just elaborate, Reese, that is the key thing. In the tweet, there were red flag words which the press has linked together: rape, women. No, and those were the red flag words.
Now, women wasn't in the tweet. The word women was not in the tweet. That wasn't a red flag.
The
exact wording of the tweet was, I wouldn't even rape you, i.e. the paraphrase of it is, I'm not going to rape you. So it wasn't a rape tweet, it was a non-rape tweet, right? And there is a context to it, because along with that tweet, he uploaded a video to YouTube. And in that video, he said, I'm going to tweet a female MP, and I'm going to tell her that I'm not going to rape her. Now, as I say that, watch as the media lie about it and claim it was a rape tweet. That's why he did it. And he made that video to say, watch as the media lie. Watch as the media purposely go to my tweet and lie about it. And he did that video, and he was proven correct. And every single day since, when there's been a lie in the paper or a lie on the television, he's been proven right. I know.
Why do that?
Because it proves that they're liars.
Isn't this just a symptom of the problem? We are a political party. We look to get elected, to have elected officials, yes? Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah.
Not primarily, no.
But would you agree that that is at least one aim? Aim that does actually help fund the party?
Provided that aim does not come in contrast with principles, yes.
Okay, well, principles are taken into account with this. But with that, what do we need to get elected?
Votes.
Exactly. And with votes, who votes? It's general public, yeah? With the general public, most of them, whilst you and the rest of us are quite happily agree that the MSN are a bunch of, to quote Carl Benjamin, dirty smear merchants, the vast majority of the voting public do not at least see it in that kind of a way. They may have a slight distrust for it, but on the whole, they do use it as a source of, come voting time, who to vote for. So those kind of comments, albeit they were taken out of context, you and I know that, they were potentially meant as a joke or as something that was perhaps with a bit of nuance easily explained. I mean, I have gone into Carl Benjamin myself and had a good talk about that with people. But to the general public, when they see I wouldn't even rape you, or it gets misconstrued by the media as a rape tweet. It's automatically a detractor. Most people are not going to look into it. It's only going to be people within UKIP or within that kind of political window anyway that might want to look into. But that doesn't help us get elected. We've already got those votes. If we want the more moderate votes, if we want to get elected, we need to come across as a more moderate party. Keep our principles. We can talk about Islam. Right. We can talk about the different things.
Sort of put in, because I think one thing that annoys me is talking about this damn tweet, because I'm sick to death of discussing it, but I appreciate it. It's an issue. Yeah, sorry.
Dan, we can't get past it. All it takes is one word, sorry, and we can get past it.
But you can't. If you apologise, you admit you were in the wrong, and we weren't in the wrong.
Reece, could we admit that from a strategic point of view, there are some things that could be more and less effective, and we don't want to waste too much time on this one issue as a party.
There are things that could be more or less effective. I'll admit that, but I would say that the Carl Benjamin tweet was not in any way ineffective. It was not a negative factor in the election, and I'm quite happy to say that. I don't think it was.
Hang on, let's find out. So you're saying because it kind of drew attention to Carl Benjamin, or to certain issues, or because
I'm saying the average voter didn't care. The average voter did not care.
Every time I opened a paper on a Sunday, and I said, and I think it was the Times, there was a number of papers, they had article after article about it. And I'm holding my hand up now. In the Euro elections, I was too ashamed to vote UKIP. I was holding a stall in Devices, and I was just embarrassed what was going on, honestly. And when I'm on my, and I'll just say one last thing, Reece.
Go for it.
One of my mates was Richard Ford, South West Regional Director. You know, we've now got, and it was just after that him and the Gloucester branch, and I lost all my mates. They just walked out. They said, "That's it. It's the end." You know what I mean? And I'm talking about somebody who I have a lot of respect for. Tommy Robinson. I've said that to you. I've tweeted it to you. I have. But we cannot have now. We need to totally reinvent this party. I want to be a councillor, and I don't want to keep living in the past. If somebody's going to bring up that I'm racist and telling me to F off stall for being racist or misogynist or whatever.
But why don't we just not talk about it anymore? It's so boring. Why don't we move on to other things?
I've got 2 key points, and they are on other things rather than the tweet about that. So the first thing is we should not ever drive our politics based on I want to be in this job or this role or whatever. That should never be how we in UKIP drive our politics, because that's how the Tory party are probably the best example. That's how the establishment do that. The Tories go, right, what will get me elected? Forget what I believe, what will get me elected? And I'm not saying that's what you're doing, because I know that's not what you're doing, and you're making a different point to that. But we can't fall into that trap of going, let's forget what we believe in and go for what will get me elected. And I appreciate.
No one's talking about letting go of values.
No, I know, and I'm exaggerating the point. I'm exaggerating the point on purpose, and I know that's not what you're saying, but it's that point is of if we put getting elected before other things, then our principles will fall down on our priorities, and that we can't be doing that. We can't be doing that. We've got to go, this is our platform, this is what we believe in. If you like it, vote for us. If you don't like it, don't vote for us. Not, let's change our platform so that you'll vote for us. That should be the way we look at politics. And we all want to get elected. I'd love to be Prime Minister one day, but I'm never going to change my platform or not talk about a certain issue or not associate with a certain person for that reason. I will go, this is who I am, take it or leave it. And I think that's how politics should be done.
Everything you've said, I agree with. Do you know why? I totally believe in fighting for my principles, but my principles are free speech within a moral context. And Carl is outside of those boundaries. And at this moment, if he apologises, he's back in, and I'm cool with that. And Mark Meacham, I personally think he needs to sort himself out and get with it. You know what I mean? I would love, Reece, do you know what? I would love to be with you as an MP in Parliament. We would have such a ball. Honest to God. And then we can start talking about the key things like mass uncontrolled immigration, covering this beautiful country in concrete and tarmac to satiate the demands of those globalists. I hate them. And we need to fight like Douglas Murray and be articulate and literate and write things in the broadsheets and explain what's going on and the way we're being manipulated. And you have just left school, and I'm a school teacher of 28 years, and I know exactly what happens in PHSE lessons and the rubbish that's been taught and the social engineering that's taking place. I know exactly what's going on, and I want to tell the world about it, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. I mean, we've got to focus on moving forward from this, because we are not in a good place right now, because Tories and the Brexit Party have taken our storm. We've got to regroup. We've got to unite. We've got to fight. Right? That's what we've got to do. And I'm sounding probably a bit like Boris's platform there, but it's true. We've that Boris strategically. Boris had the right idea. What we've got to do is we've got to go, right, this is what we stand for. This is what we're going to do. Now we're going to organise. We're going to build a democracy within our party. We're going to have an NEC who actually represent the members. We're going to campaign hard in every election. We need to be getting on with these things. But when in doing so, we can't forget what we believe in. And I will pick up on something else you said a minute ago, which was about Richard Ford and all that. And I work with Richard a lot, and he's a good guy. But when he left UKIP, he didn't just leave. Most of the people have left. You know, a lot of people have left in my area, some in my branch, and so on. They left, and that was it. And they said, right, you know what? I'm done with UKIP now. I'm moving to the Brexit Party, or I'm going independent, whatever. That's not what Richard did. Richard didn't just leave quietly and go off. First of all, he knew about the Tommy stuff for a very long time. Okay, he knew about that for ages. He stayed in the party. He stayed in a very high role within the party. He was a candidate for the party, you know, and so on, right? And that was fine. But as soon as there was another party available that he could then move to and keep some sort of profile, he then jumped ship. And when he jumped ship, he sent out an email to all the local papers, and I think some of the national papers and so on, calling UKIP racist. I'm sorry, but I've got no respect for that. If he thought UKIP was racist, he would have left a very long time ago. And I think he did that for himself, because it would have boosted his standings in the next election to call us racist. And I that's not on. So as much as I thought he did a good job in UKIP, he's clearly shown himself to be a man more about himself than about what he believes in.
I think we need to differentiate very much between those who are political opportunists, like the gentleman you're talking about, and actual issues that we face within the party.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of the issues that we are having, there is a slight correlation between the political defectors and the issues that we're talking about. I mean, I'm not saying that UKIP has a racist problem, but there are certainly more questionable things that are going on, especially within a lot of the membership, some of the rhetoric that's being talked about in higher levels. And I think that a lot of the defections are being used as barriers just to say, look, no, it's not us. The direction we're going is absolutely fine. It's actually all them. They're all just liars. And I think that's masking a lot of the issues that we need to face.
But what you're implying there is racism, or some degree of racism within UKIP, and I don't believe that. I don't believe that for 1 second.
Yeah.
Over 3 years in UKIP, I have met one person who was racist, and he was expelled within a week.
Not within racism itself, not with the topic of racism, but more general ideas. It's like the idea behind Islamophobia, and other bits and pieces. Which define the directions.
If I can say, I thought the manifesto we've got that Gerard wrote, to be honest, I can't see anything wrong with it. But, Reese, I agree. The bits in the manifesto that refer to Islam is actually referring to literalists and not the whole of Islam and not all Muslims. I think it's a fair manifesto. What would help is the wording of it changed. So we don't refer to Islam, we refer to any extremist. I think that would be good, because Piers Morgan had a field day, didn't he? All about the manifesto and the exact wording of it. But I don't actually think the manifesto is racist. Like any political party, I think you've got individuals who can be dodgy. And if they say anything or believe anything that they shouldn't, we're patriots, we're nationalists, we're not racists. And if there are any racists in the party, they just need kicking out straight away. That's what that's what I think.
But
the individual.
The thing is with the manifesto, I think it was absolutely fantastic, and something I'll go back to sort of a bit of an early point. There's only a brief point earlier in the debate. I can't remember who actually said it on what side, but somebody made the point that UKIP needs to be an intellectual party. I think Mike, you mentioned we need to be like Douglas Murray and so on, and we do. And our manifesto was an absolutely brilliant embodiment of that. The policies in there were really intellectual policies in many of them. You know, they talked about specific laws, they talked about the fundamentals of what we need to change in this country, and exactly step by step how we were going to do it. And Gerard Batten has a history of releasing documents like that. You look at his Brexit document, I think it was a 6-page booklet he released called The Road to Freedom, another brilliant step-by-step guide of legally, you know, in terms of legislation, in terms of campaigning, politics, how we leave the EU, what the options are, what Britain should be doing. And it's a fantastic read. And it explains perfectly and intellectually how we go about doing it. And that is the sort of thing that Gerard Batten is most known for, I think. That is the sort of thing that he is best at. And that's what he consistently does. Intellectual, well thought out, you know, policies and ways of promoting those policies. They're brilliant.
Well, there is a problem. There is a problem, and it's called Stuart Agnew and his energy and environmental policies. Now, Reese, did you do A-level physics? And you're going to uni, aren't you? Is that right? We got a problem. You've got a problem, and it's called man-made global warming. Now, the thing is, it exists. It's a battle we should not be fighting. You do not take on the best at NASA. You were taught at school. I taught it as a science teacher. Just accept it. We are going to lose thousands of votes in the general election. Jeremy Corbyn and this Tory administration, they're going to load up man-made global warming in their manifesto. And if we start taking the mick out of it, we're going to lose big time. We should be concentrating on social issues and just no science debate that leads nowhere. It needs sorting out.
No, but it's not a science debate that leads nowhere. It's a science debate that means lots of people are paying double the amount of money for their fuel. It means people are spending far more money when they're struggling to put food on the table for their families, and they're paying hundreds of pounds in car tax because their car emits lots of CO2, right? That makes it a massive issue. It makes it a massive issue when companies are paying millions and millions in tax because they're supposedly emitting lots of gas, which is destroying the world, right? Now, I'm not saying man-made global warming doesn't exist because I'm not qualified to say that. What I am saying is I have yet to see any substantial, unarguable evidence for it. And when we're taxing people billions of pounds every year, when we're making it tough for families to drive, when we're making it really, really hard for companies to employ people because of how much tax they're paying, I think questions need to be asked. I think we need to be looking at this and going, okay, there's a problem. At the very least, even if climate change doesn't exist, right, we're going to run out of fossil fuels one day, so we need to be getting rid of them. But the solution to that problem isn't to tax the hell out of everyone and make life a misery for everyone who needs to use them. The solution to that is to invest in the science that is producing solutions. Now, I don't know the exact science, but we are looking, you know, there are scientists looking into developing cars powered by hydrogen. We don't have the science yet, but it's a really optimistic future. We're making nuclear power just down south from me. You've got Hinkley Point, which is making a massive amount of nuclear power. Brilliant initiative, right? There are solutions, but the solution is not to tax people out of a living. And that's something UKIP should be standing up for. And yeah, it might be hated by sort of the elite to go, climate change doesn't exist. But at the end of the day, there is no scientific consensus. And there is, sorry, not scientific consensus, no scientific proof. We don't have a proof of climate change. We have an argument and a theory of climate change.
We have. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I mean, you can.
Oh my God, it's the skeptics
versus the. See, I did university level chemistry, and one of those was talking about how different like CO2, sulfates, and nitrates all affect greenhouse gases in different ways. Now, I mean, as everyone should know, fuels also emit, not apart from CO2, they also emit sulfates. Yep. They also emit a lot of nitrous-based elements. And believe it or not, those actually affect the climate more than CO2. It's just the fact that CO2 is much more numerous. But no, they do affect the climate. We are making, I mean, if you look at the history, global warming, climate change, it's a very natural thing. But the thing is, we are really not helping it. We are really accelerating this. This thing's meant to have a turnaround of, 100,000 years between ice ages, maybe a bit more. The last ice age for us was about 10,000 years ago. If we go the way we're going, we're going to halve that time span at the bare minimum. What I don't agree with is a lot of the alarmist stuff with climate change. That can be dialed down a bit. I don't agree that the world's going to end in 10 years or whatever, because they've made that prediction since the mid-90s with Al Gore. And timelines have come on. I think 2006 was a deadline at some point. I know 2012 was, and the world hasn't ended just yet. But I think there are certain things that do need to be done. One thing that I'm potentially looking to look into as a bit of a sort of with the whole UKIP and policy thing is looking into thorium power reactors. Because thorium, it's a version of nuclear, has a lot less waste than uranium reactors, and it also means that thorium. I don't know if any of you know where thorium is found in the world, but it's not Saudi Arabia, so we can stop funding the Saudis. It's the most abundant the most abundant area in the world for thorium is Australia, and I mean, right. Come Brexit, we'll do a deal with that, But no, climate change is real, 100%.
I disagree. So yeah, well, climate change has always been real, and it's always changed. Anyway, I think we've kind of wandered off into slightly a million miles away from the Batten Walker debate. I'm not sure if we can kind of get back there. So we've done, what have we done? We've sort of briefly done Tommy Robinson and associations. I believe.
Should we talk about election results?
Should be part of UKIP in some dimension, and ideally, I would like to see him brought in from the cold. Possibly with a combination of him moderating, maybe some of his approach, if possible. If not, then he retains some kind of association with the party. I think Carl Benjamin's very much more statesman-like. I think he's part of the party. I think wherever the party goes, I would be with that camp of things. I think it's unfortunate, this tweet, but that he's done, but it's there, and I don't want to talk about it forever. And I think he's got many more great things to give. And I think if someone's got 90% great stuff and they say a couple of dumb things, then I focus on the good stuff, ignore the media, to hell with the media. That's my personal approach. If it's a sticking point with people, I would wish that Carl would maybe just sort of, at least internally within UKIP, seek to make some kind of positive signs, which I think he may have actually done anyway. I don't necessarily think groveling to the media is a great approach. I personally hope that rift, if there is a rift, could be healed by him maybe just reaching out to a few people like that have the opinions of Mike and Danny. If he doesn't and he refuses to, well, then either the party's gonna rift. Well, maybe if he has already, then yeah. But I'm just sort of trying to sum things up a little bit, and then so we've done the Carl Benjamin kind of thing. I don't know whether anyone's any closer or further. I try and sort of
let's talk about
from both sides. But at the end of the day, I'm still, if the party went one way or the other, I would go with that camp, because I don't think what the dumb things he's done is as important as what the guy brings to the party or the issues that Tommy Robinson raises. I think there's better approaches, but I still believe that the party without those people would be so much worse off that I would go with that wing of the party any day. But I don't know whether you guys are.
Let's talk about election results, because that's something we've not really discussed yet, and that's something that's been a massive debating point under Batten's leadership. Is obviously at the moment we're doing pretty bad in a lot. In that by-election the other night, we got, what was it, 1%. And granted, that wasn't a seat that's particularly good for UKIP. I would have never, even in our heyday, expected 10% there. I don't know actually what we got. We may well have got 10% saying that, but I wouldn't. What I'm saying is I wouldn't have expected a fantastic result there. But 1% is abysmal, and I think we can all agree that result was not good. What we disagree on is why that result was not good. Now, what I want to do is I want to talk about the elections we've had under Batten's leadership. So the first set of elections under Batten's leadership were the locals in 2018. But I don't think, and I'm sure everyone would agree, it's not really fair to hold Batten to those, because he'd only been in power for what, a month or two, and he'd come in power straight after all the Henry Bolton stuff. The party was completely in civil war, and we barely had time to organise our candidates, let alone the campaigns or anything else. So that election wasn't great. It was still, I think I'm right in saying it was better than the last one, but it still wasn't great. Moving on from that, the elections after Batten had a lot of time in power. The first ones really are the local elections this year. A lot of people are going around saying those local elections are terrible for UKIP. It's awful. We lost loads of councillors. It was disastrous. And yeah, we did. We did lose a lot of councillors. But that's compared to 2015, which was the same election round as when there was the general election, where Brexit was the number one, Brexit and immigration were the number one issues on the table. So of course UKIP was going to do well, right? The second point of that is we had a lot less candidates. If you look at the areas we actually stood in, somebody did thoroughly work this out rigorously, and I can't remember the exact number. I think it was we averaged 16% of the vote in the areas we stood. 16% is really good. That's better than we got in the 15 election. 16% is a fantastic result. If you look up north, we were getting 30% in quite a lot of places. Look at Sunderland, we had councillors elected. If you go to all the key hotspots in the north of working class areas where they're having problems with things like rape gangs or, you know, people who are silenced, UKIP did incredibly well. We are very quickly becoming a voice for those who have been forgotten or silenced. And then if you look at places down south, you look at my area, Weston-super-Mare. In our two target seats, we got 17% and 20% of the vote. Again, incredible results. And that was with one leaflet drop. That's all we did for the entire campaign, a single leaflet drop. And we got 17% and 20% under Batten's leadership. That result was incredible. And I'm not going to list every result we had in the country, but you get the idea. Generally speaking, those results were incredible. There were some bad results, as there always are for every party, but generally, across the board, in the seats we stood in, they were incredible results. It was the biggest growth we've had in the last 6 years. That's including Paul Nuttall's leadership, Nigel Farage's leadership, the biggest growth we've had in the last 6 years. It was the first growth we've had in the last 3 years, right? It was a success, and there is no way you can spin that as anything other than a success if you look at the places we stood. The only problem, the only thing that let us down was the fact that we didn't stand in enough seats. And yeah, you can probably argue that's because of Batten's leadership. Perhaps that was an element of it. But if you look at the areas we actually stood in, the areas where the electorate had a chance to listen to us, the electorate where the electorate had a chance to have their say, we did consistently well. And that's true. We've seen that. Then look at the polling, the general election polling. We were consistently polling around that level. We at the time of the locals, we were above 10% in the polls. I think we're on 11, 12% or something. And in the places we stood, obviously, we got about 16%, so they were good areas for us, whatever. We were rising in the polls, and we were above 10%. Just before the Brexit Party launched, we were in a few polls on as much as 16, 17% nationally. Incredible results, right? And then the day Nigel Farage launched the Brexit Party, we shot back down again. And the problem is, we're never going to compete with that. And that's not Gerard's fault, because it wouldn't matter if Ben Walker was leader. It wouldn't matter whoever was leader. If Nigel is standing on the Brexit Party platform, tactically, even people who support Tommy are, for the time being, probably going to vote for Nigel because he's the man who can get Brexit done. He's Mr. Brexit. And sadly, there's no way around that.
This is where nuance comes into play. Very much so. So I don't know if a lot of you guys were on social media around the time of the locals, but I, for one, saw a lot of UKIP in the locals, Brexit Party in the Euros kind of rhetoric. And that was largely down because the big issue of the day is Brexit, has been since 2016. So we have been a party that should have been focused on Brexit. We dropped that ball. We were still the party of Brexit, which is why people still had us in mind in the locals, which is why we did appreciably all right in the locals. But when it came down to it, a fight between the Brexit Party and UKIP, we lost out completely. Now, the difference, this is where the nuance comes in, is why that was a thing. Why did the Brexit Party come to fruition? Why did it become a success? And that is because Batten dropped the ball in favor of things like Islam. He dropped the ball, which meant that we weren't the party of Brexit. Whilst we are pro-Brexit, we were not the party of Brexit, which gave Farage the opportunity to just swoon in and pick up those votes. That is why we did so badly in the Euros. It was the Brexit Party, but we let them get there. Gerard let them get there.
And how could Gerard have stopped that? Are you suggesting that if Gerard...
By focusing on Brexit and not Islam.
And you think Nigel wouldn't have left that way?
No. It's hard to say whether or not... Obviously, I'm not Nigel. I can't think like Nigel. But the maths works out the dates. I don't know if you know anything about the dates. But when Gerard Batten publicly announced his allegiance with Tommy Robinson, literally the day after, Nigel Farage said, "Yep, bye, I'm off, see you later." In the background, the Brexit Party was being set up by someone completely different. Farage did not set up the Brexit Party. It wasn't until sort of that he didn't.
He asked Catherine Blakelock. He gave full approval to Catherine Blakelock to set up the Brexit Party. He wasn't the individual who did it, but Catherine Blakelock did it colluding with Nigel.
Okay, maybe so. But if UKIP hadn't have lost sight of Brexit, how would the Brexit Party differentiate itself from UKIP?
Nigel.
If UKIP...
But it's the
you do realise that
Nigel. Come on, we all know it was the Nigel cult. And if you want to join the Nigel cult, and that's the only thing you're interested in, and you don't think that Islam's an issue in it because it's not good for votes, and you just want to try and get elected and get your face in the European parliaments. I mean, the people that I met in UKIP are really here. They're the ones that have stayed, and it makes me slightly curious, Danny. Why you would necessarily want to be here if it sounds like you're more sort of attracted by the allure of sort of the Nigel Farage thing and the sort of getting votes.
I'm not.
I mean, you guys,
I'm not.
I'm just saying that there is a lot of loads of the people that I met that support Batten are here really because they believe that these issues are important. Whether it's messy and difficult, whether Tommy Robinson's a bit rough around the edges, that's not their main.
The issue is a lot of
it's because they believe that Batten's principled. Even again, if he's a bit of a grumpy guy or whatever, he is what he is. It's because he represents those opinions. He's not afraid to talk about them. There's the freedom of speech. There's the conviction that we have to be able to. That's why I'm here, and I just would hope that anyone else would appreciate that we're here out of conviction and belief, not really.
But I'm
primarily
sure,
just because we're trying to court the media. That seems like a bit like you're coming across like if only we were as slick as Nigel. But that's not why I'm here. Otherwise, I would join.
No. Hold on. The key difference is there is a time and a place for different issues. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
There is a time things under heaven. Yeah, I mean, yeah, accept that and accept that the time and the place for talking about difficult things.
So would you agree? So would you agree that whilst Gerard Batten himself in his book had predicted the fact that Westminster would betray Brexit, do you think that it was the time and the place for Islam to be brought up as a pertinent subject?
Yes.
Do you think that
because
in the middle of
but we shouldn't view it as he made Islam a key subject. That's not what that was about.
But Brexit is exactly what it was about.
Brexit was still the number one issue on the table.
That was the whole point. There was a really important issue. This guy was getting slammed away in prison. Oh, we don't want to talk about it because we don't want to lose votes and we want to kind of go we want to worry about the Brexit party and stuff. You say there's a time and a place. Well, maybe there is, maybe there's not. Maybe the time is to stand up for your principles. Maybe that Batten made that stand. Maybe it was politically, but maybe it wasn't. The fact is that that's where we are now. We've got to move on. There's no point in going back really and saying, well, what if Batten had waited another 2 months and then...
No, but isn't that precisely what's being talked about now, though? Because we're talking about whether or not to carry on down that direction with Brain and Batten, or whether or not to completely change tack with Walker. So this is a very valid argument to have.
It's absolutely a valid argument. You're right, but the problem is, it's not a case of we're talking about Brexit or we're talking about Islam. There is in no way it is not like that. Okay, it's a case of we need to talk about every issue. You look at the the great leaders this country's had. You look at Thatcher, you look at Churchill, you look at all the prime ministers. They were never famous for doing one thing. They're famous because they were a prime minister who achieved a great number of things at the same time. You look at they are popular and they are successful and they are effective because they can handle multiple issues. They talk about Brexit. They would talk about Islam. They would talk about the economy, right? That's what UKIP needs to be doing. We can talk about all these issues at once.
We could make
talk about those.
I'm putting my cards on the table. I'm putting my cards on the table. I voted Ben Walker. However, this time next week, if Ben Walker is leader, this is what I want us to be fighting for. I am against halal meat. I'm actually a vegan, and I don't want it in schools. I don't want the introduction of Sharia law. I want it to be British constitutional law based on a Judeo-Christian culture, etc., because that's why I'm UKIP. I am against these grooming gangs in Rotherham. I'm a Yorkshireman. I'm for all these issues. However, I want power. I want to be a councillor. And the fact is that the establishment has got the perception that Tommy Robinson is racist and that we are linked to racism. Now, I'm thinking about Tommy Robinson. I think in a kind of way he's a flawed hero. And I know he's not a perfect guy, but I would like Tommy Robinson to come out of prison and just step back from the battle, look after his wife and kids, and I am inspired by what he's done, but I want him now to move away, and I want UKIP to take on his beliefs and fight his causes.
I'm going to ask you something. When you next stand as a councillor or in a general election, and your local paper says UKIP candidate in our constituency was, quote, inspired by Tommy Robinson, with a video of what you just said attached to that, you can't run blaming Gerard Batten. You can't run blaming Gerard Batten. Then you're going to have to accept that you're associated with Tommy Robinson.
And I will.
Then why is Gerard Batten wrong for doing the same thing?
This is on video.
That's a good question.
And I will say exactly that I saw a YouTube video of what happened near Manchester. Come on, Reese, help me with this. Salford.
Awesome.
When he was attacked by a group of Muslims, I saw that, and it was taken off air. And I saw that. I'm not going to lie about anything, but at this moment in time, UKIP needs to move on. And I'm actually thinking about Tommy. I think he should actually now stand down. And
but answer my question. Why is Gerard wrong for doing for saying the same thing you've just said? Why is Gerard wrong doing that? I agree with what you've said. I congratulate you, applaud you for saying it. But why is Gerard wrong for saying the same thing?
Do you mean for continuing his association with Tommy Robinson? Do you mean continuation of it?
Yeah.
Why is it wrong? Because, I mean, it goes back to what we're saying. UKIP need votes. We need power. And I totally agree. This world's not perfect. And perception is terrible. But we've got to move away from the perception. Because when Gerard or any leader goes on TV, they can't spend 4/5 of their time trying to defend the fact that UKIP is not racist because of the pathetic association, and it is perception, with racism. We've got to concentrate on
answer my question. That's quite a specific question, right? You said that you're inspired by Tommy. I agree with you. I'm inspired by Tommy too. So is Gerard. You've continued to do it because we are now in that moment in time where we should be talking about Brexit, whatever that we've all discussed. We're in that moment right now, and you have today said you're inspired by Tommy. The same thing that you've criticised Gerard for doing. Why is Gerard wrong for doing it now? Why is Gerard wrong for doing it?
Before Christmas. So sorry, how do you mean?
What your entire argument is or close enough to it is that Gerard is wrong for associating with Tommy. That's what you've said. Why is that different?
Imagine a battle. I'll put it with an analogy. Imagine a battle, and say your frontline troops have gone forward. They've had some success, but now the enemy has got the measure of them, and they're decimating them. And because of the close proximity of the rest of the army, they're having to go at us. Now, sometimes you need to pull back certain troops and then move forward with fresh troops. If there's an analogy. It's time for Tommy now to step back. It's time
then
for
why
other
are you bringing
things.
him up? Why are you supporting him?
He's not even in UKIP, though. Come on.
Why, if it's time to stop supporting Tommy, why are you supporting him?
I'll tell you something. Do you know the New European newspaper? Only 2 weeks ago, I was reading it, and they was talking about this election battle, and they were taking the mick out of Gerard Batten. They were saying another front runner is Tommy Robinson. He's not even part of the party. They were bringing up about Carl Benjamin again. And that newspaper is in Sainsbury's and all supermarkets, and they are continually bringing it up and taking the mick out of those people. And I just think it's time now.
We shouldn't be looking at the New European for what the public think of us. The New European is a dirty pro-EU rag.
Really
is. We are never. We could have the greatest leader. We could have Jesus Christ as our leader, and the New European would call him a racist, right? It's ridiculous. We can't be looking at the New European and going, well, there's a bad headline in the New European, therefore we need to change tack. No. New European will always hate us, and there's no point trying to please them. I will just say quickly, we were going to limit ourselves to an hour. It's an hour 16 now. So we should probably think about rounding it off in the next few minutes, if that's okay with everyone.
Yeah. All I was going to say, in answer to the question that you were referring over, Reese, I would potentially, if it was my opinion, I'd draw a distinction between supporting someone and the cause that they are for, and bringing them on board and all of the dirty laundry that entails. So I would be quite happy if I had the ability to go to a free Tommy rally. Absolutely fine. I've got no issues with that. What I do have an issue with is a political party such as UKIP aligning itself with something like that. Because I see Tommy Robinson more as a street movement. It's what it is. It's essentially a street movement. It's not something that the political party as a whole should throw its weight behind. It should be something that Gerard should go, oh yeah, this person, Tommy Robinson, a lot of stuff happening, not very nice. You know, we stand with him. Solidarity, or whatever it is the kids say these days. But what he should not have done has said, oh yeah, just come on as an advisor. Oh yeah, you know that thing that the press hounds you about? Yeah, come talk to me about it. That would be all fine. Absolutely fine. The media won't take any notice of that. We won't lose any votes over that.
So that's fine. So if the media don't like us doing something, we should just not do it then, should we?
I think we should be a bit more sensible with who we bring on.
That's not really an answer, is it? Come on.
Well, it is.
If the media don't want us doing something, what you're saying is we shouldn't do it.
No, we should be more sensible behind it. We should be more calculating. Like for instance, on the subject of Islam, who would? Well, I know what your answer is, Reese, but me personally, I would rather see that UKIP throw its weight behind someone like Imam Tawhidi, an Islamic scholar, you know, who has almost the same things to say about Islam as Tommy Robinson. Not quite in the same breadth, not quite in the same rhetoric, but he is still super critical about roughly the same areas that Tommy is. But he has a bit more nuance about it. Tommy just screams and shouts, politically speaking. So that's where I would potentially see UKIP go. Still dealing with the Islam issue, still having those principles, but going about it in a much more positive light, in a much more receptive light. I mean, what's the media going to pick apart? A lot easier. Is it going to be some bloke from Luton who has a criminal record as long as his arm, no matter how correct his rhetoric? Or
do you mean a white working class person? Do you mean a white working class person, where instead we have to ship in a Muslim to talk about Islamic issue? I mean, in theory, we should be able to. To be honest, I do agree with you.
Why is it about him being Muslim?
He's Australian. I think we all have to be tactical, whatever we do. Even if we bring in someone who I think's radical but valid, I mean, even I acknowledge that it would have to be done tactically, and it would also partly depend whether Tommy Robinson realised that being there is certain rough edges that maybe could be smoothed off in order to have a tactical advantage for his own, own agenda and everything. So I do agree with that element of what you're saying, but at the same time, I also think that there are millions of votes there. I think he does represent. He's a white working class hero. I don't think that we should necessarily call him. You did sort of imply that he was came with dirty baggage. I don't particularly like that association. I do agree with that. We have to be tactical. I would say that the association there is good and positive and could be enhanced with the right circumstances. And I think having a strategy in order to try and bring him in theory, bring him in from the cold, and that one day people might look back and look at people like Tommy Robinson and wonder, what the hell? Why the hell did we throw that guy in prison? He could be a hero, could end up getting a knighthood one day. Then we'll all be going, well, we told you so, and you'll be saying, well, yeah, of course, yeah, well, I was behind him all the time. But that's my position. But yeah, tactical. But I think we should be welcoming, and I think we shouldn't be snobby about it. And I don't think we should look down on people just because they are a bit rough and ready. Half of the country is, half our voter base is. So let's not.
Again, it's very different between being very warm and very welcoming, and then offering a position of advisor to the leader of a party. Those are two very different things.
Yeah. Well, why can't a working class person be an advisor? They have first-hand experience of what it's like to live in those communities. So I don't think that that's a bad thing. Again, I think you've been a little bit,
I think you overestimate the support that he has among the working class. I mean, he went to. Well, he only got what 38,000 votes.
No,
in the
right. This is almost like a separate discussion, right? And I think that you're right, and people certainly expected a magic wand to wave as soon as all these guys came on board. They got millions of followers. Why haven't we instantly got millions of votes? I think that will be a more gradual process, and I think UKIP also has to have a policy of changing its image a bit and welcoming people on board. And I don't think they've done that yet. I've been to the Carl rallies. I'm here because of the Carl rally. I'm the chairman of a local group. I'm probably the exception to some extent, and I'm still in touch with a lot of people who I met at the rallies who I haven't quite managed to bring them on board. But I think with time and the right strategy, I can see that happening, and I would be one working hell for leather to make that happen. I think, yeah, Tommy Robinson does have millions of supporters. I think I rent out a house to builders, right, that come down from the north of England. Tommy Robinson is one of their absolute heroes. They have networks of builders all around the country. They work all over the place. These guys, if they were given the right impetus, given a little bit of, there are literally millions of people. So I don't think tactically it's bad. I think it's tactically it's good. I think from a principle position it's good, and I think it shows that we're prepared to reach out to people that other parties just there's a horrible snobbery in Britain that you don't have in America. The white working class, the blue collar workers voted Trump in. There were a hidden majority of people who had never voted before. There's so much to learn from the American elections, from Steve Bannon's philosophy. Trump's the messiest person that you could almost have. He's done worse tweets than Carl Benjamin. The guy's a steamroller. We don't have to be all pig. There's something to be learned from the American approach. Stop fussing about a tweet here, or whether some guy said something, or whether he's got a couple of tattoos. I mean, we're not a party of snobs. All the other parties are. There's a massive opportunity for UKIP, and I'm just trying.
I'd like to say, I've absolutely loved this, and I want to do this again.
Oh, nice one, Mike.
With all three of you, I think it's been great.
Yeah, you've been good opponents, I have to say.
We're going to do it again.
Yeah. I hope we've tried to find something valid. I think there's always a position for people who are more sensible, moderate, and they'll say they'll come along because you've got the classic sort of Cromwellians, the Roundheads, and the Cavaliers, and I'm probably more of a Cavalier by personality. I probably go too far sometimes, and I respect people who come and say, well, look, hang on, and that's why I'm a Christian. I hold myself accountable. I know I'm imperfect, but I think that it's politics and life. It's a messy process, and UKIP's the party that can allow especially young people. I mean, with the exception of Reece, they can be messy, they can be chaotic, but they can still be welcomed on board. And so they say a couple of dumb things, it makes them more human anyway. And then we need sensible, sober people like Mike and Danny to, kind of draws you a bit of down to earth, good Yorkshire kind of advice.
Excellent.
No,
it's been
but
good.
Anyway, yeah, I've enjoyed it as well. Thanks, Mike. I hope it's I hope it's not been too being combative and Danny.
I love it. It's fantastic.
Good.
It's like verbal thrust and parry, isn't it? It's really good. Excellent.
Come on, Danny, give us a smile.
So a week today, we're going to have a new leader. I wonder who's going to win then.
Anyone placing bets? Then come on. Come on. 5-1, Richard Brain. I'll tell you about. I put a
to be honest,
bet on some elections.
It's either down to Brain, Hookham, or Walker. That's what I'm thinking. I don't think.
Really? I thought it was between Brain and Batten for me. I mean, when I saw them, it was just like there was no contest. The reason I did Hookham Brain for this was because, Walker Brain, because Walker represents more a different approach to Batten. I think Freddie's approach is a bit more savvy. I think he just wants to get elected. To be honest, he doesn't want to alienate voters. I think he's slightly more on the Hookham side, but I think he's sort of trying to play the middle ground, which is why I didn't think, even though I think Freddie and Brain are probably the two most likely. Freddie's position is slightly more self-interested, I would say, but diplomatic. So I didn't think it would make us an interesting contrast. But I'm surprised. I don't know. I tried to look up the election odds, but I couldn't find anything. But yeah.
Yeah, well, those election odds still have Carl Benjamin as a leadership.
Yeah,
option.
they're out of date. I would put it on. But you guys are hopeful. You really reckon Walker's got a good chance to? Even if you believe, or is it a principle?
To be honest, I'd be happy with Walker or Hookham.
Who's your second choice then, Mike? Or do you already say Hookham or Walker? Yeah, well, I'm Brain and Batten. What's your second choice, Reese? Reese, your voice is gone. I can't hear Reese. Is everyone else still here?
Sorry, yeah, I'm back now. I pressed mute by accident.
Well, who's your second choice?
My only choice was Brain. I didn't put a second choice.
Really? Come on.
I didn't put one. I don't like any of the other three. There's a photo of my ballot on Twitter if you don't believe me. I'm sure they're good guys. Well, I say that. Some of them are good guys. But at the end of the day, I believe in freedom. I believe that there is a massive problem in Britain with freedom, that our government are taking our freedoms away from us, our freedom of speech. You know, you look at the way we're being taxed, you look at the way we're being controlled, what we can say, what we can think, what we can do, and the punishments for thinking and saying are getting worse and worse. And I think if the leader of UKIP doesn't recognise those problems, I've lost interest. I'm not saying I'm going to leave the party if one wins. I see nothing in them. And I see Brexit as a big part of that. I should make that clear. Brexit is a massive part of that freedom because the EU is one of the biggest things taking away our freedoms. And Brexit has to be the primary issue within that campaign for freedom. But I don't see any of the other three acknowledging that. Freddie's probably the best of those three, but none of them inspire me at all. So I didn't want to vote for one of them. It's Brain or bust.
I think what we've all...
I'll accept the outcome of the election as long as Brain wins, just to paraphrase. So.
I think what we've all got to remember is, we all agree on the main key points of UKIP. We do. This is what we're discussing here today is a lot of the nitty gritty details of it. We all want the same thing. We all have the same end goal. It's just where we differ is how to get there. So the message that I kind of want to put across is just, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day who wins. It's a slight different change of direction. It's not something that's really worth sacrificing a membership over. It 100% is.
I don't know. I could see a risk. If Brain doesn't win, I could see. I don't know if maybe I almost didn't want to say because I don't want to, but I do feel. I don't know if Reese feels quite the same, but it's almost like I'm so wedded to that side of thinking that it's hard to imagine UKIP if they started saying, okay, well, Tommy's out, Sargon's out, and it's like, well, there would be such a rift. I think there would almost be a split possibly.
Yeah, the way I look at it is it's simple. It's,
even though I agree with what he's saying, actually there are masses in common that we have between. I mean, the amount of common ground we all have is enormous, but that difference is actually, as Reece pointed out, it's quite fundamental for me. And I don't want to be part of a small party that's so bland, and I just wouldn't care. I'd rather be part of a small party with 200 people in that really had shared my beliefs, and we got so much in common, and so much the amount of enthusiasm and energy and idealism that I come the sort of hanging out with the Carl crowd. I mean, it's such a party, it's such a blast. And
yeah, I think the thing for me is, on the surface of it, we probably agree on 95% of policies, all four of us, right? You know, you look at pro-Brexit, you look at a lot of economic policies, you look at our policies on immigration, on culture. Broadly, we're going to agree, right? But the difference, I think, that underpins the Bat and Brain movement rather than the other candidates is the way we view politics, the principles we have. And I'm not saying you don't have principles. I'm saying our principles are different, right? And what I mean by that is, we believe in something and we're unashamed of that, and we're going to say that, even if it means we lose every vote that we'd ever get. If we believe in it, we'll say it. If we're asked a question about it, we'll answer it, right? And the way I view it, the other candidate's approach is, let's just push away the issues that might not get us votes. Let's just pretend they don't exist. Let's just not worry about them. And as Mike Cookham said, supposedly Islamification does not exist at all, because it doesn't exist where he lives, so it mustn't exist at all, which is bonkers. But the way I view it, and the way Batten views it, and the way our group within the party, I guess, views it, is we believe in something. The electorate should know exactly what we believe in, and we're going to say exactly what we believe in, popular or not. And that, for me, is fundamental to everything else. If you don't have that trait, then what's the point? Because the key thing that people don't like about politicians is they lie to get votes. And I'm not saying you guys or the candidates are lying to get votes, but it's that same mindset of, if it's not going to get us votes, let's not focus on it. No, we focus on what we believe.
I think that's the main difference. I think the main difference is largely due to the fact that a lot of the Batten sort of the Brain Batten supporters, they really like the idea of being able to shout their views from the rooftops, and they think that that's the only way to get their message across. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's it. That is exactly what it looks like. It honestly looks like that all you guys want to do is just, I don't care how this sounds in the media, Islam is a death cult. And that is exactly how it comes across. But with the other candidates, you get a bit more of a nuanced approach, something that the public are more likely to be able to take on board.
It's not a nuanced approach.
That's what you're getting.
It's not a nuanced approach. It's an approach of, well, that might not be popular, so I'm not going to say it. I'll pretend I don't think that. That's what the approach is. It's not nuanced. It's scared. It's being wet. That's what it is.
I think if we fight smart, we will get into Parliament, and then we can start talking about Muslim rape gangs in front of Jeremy Corbyn and get on the news and let everybody know about it. And we can start talking about LGBT issues being pressed in schools, and the fact that puberty blockers have pharmacological effects in the long term and they've not been tested. And we can start coming out with really controversial things, and everybody in the country is going to hear what we believe in. But first of all, we've actually got to get into local government. We've got to get into central government. We've got to fight smart.
What you've just said,
with that approach, Mike, is that although I agree that we all have to have tactics, even though recently are probably, I like to think that we're kind of, I don't want to say you're not principled, we're prepared to put principle before tactic to more of a degree than you are, whereas you're thinking more tactically and less, you're prepared to put aside your principles to some extent. We all have to do that. Everyone has to do that to a degree. But what I'm saying is that the way that you described your approach just then, Mike, to me is slightly like, well, if we sell a bit of our soul now, later we'll be able to talk about the real issues. Maybe that's mischaracterizing, but I think there's a danger that you think that if you buy some sort of short-term kind of fakeness now, that later on you'll be able to talk about the issues. My worry is that you sell a bit of your soul now, then you'll end up selling a bit more and a bit more, and you'll never end up talking about But I think
let me tell you about
it can be a slippery slope. I might be mischaracterizing, but that's my instinct.
Let me tell you about a bit of my soul that I'm selling then. First of all, the Cal Benjamin issue, I'm not selling any of my soul. He apologizes, number one. Mark Meacham, I'm not selling any of my soul. He apologizes. The thing about Tommy, in a kind of way, I do feel bad. But on the other hand, I do honestly think that Tommy should literally pack in campaigning. I think his life's been turned upside down. I want him for his well-being. I want him with his family and kids, and I want him out of the mainstream media spotlights for his own benefit. Am I being selfish from a UKIP viewpoint? I suppose I am, and that's the bit of the soul I'm selling. But for him, I actually do think a lot about him. But I just wish he comes out of prison now and move and be proud of what he's done. He's done a lot. And you know, but just leave it at that, and perhaps write books.
He wants to die. He wants to live like a martyr. The guy wants to live like a martyr. I mean, that's his choice. I haven't got his kahunas, but you know, he's chosen that path, and it's hard not to respect it. He's going to live and die by it, and he's prepared to do that. I mean, you can't, you know, no greater love hath a man that's prepared to lay down his life. I mean, he's almost like you know, a sort of Christian martyr or something. If only he
but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. But I think UKIP should shake his hand and say, mate, we've got to move on. Battle tactics.
Just now.
You know what I mean?
If I can, I want to respond to a point. Last point, or the point before that of the point of what you want to do is get elected and then talk about rape gangs and so on, right? And that point.
I didn't mean that. I meant the issues I want to put aside. I've just itemized. I want to talk about rape gangs now, full stop, and how I'll meet and all that. I'm absolutely fine with that. But if we put aside those specific issues I've mentioned, it actually increases the chance of magnifying the things we're talking about now. I'm not, Reese, you go for it. Talk. All the things you're talking about, I'm all for.
But what I mean is that point you made. What I'll say what I think you said, and if I'm wrong, correct me. What I understand is you've said you agree with those issues about grooming gangs and so on and so on. You agree with all that about the LGBT stuff in schools. You agree with what we're saying, but you think park those issues for now, so that when we're elected, we've got a bigger platform. Is that not what you said?
No. All those issues talk about now. I'm saying the association with a certain person, Tommy Robinson, the baggage we've got with Carl Benjamin. I'm saying sort that out so we can get into Parliament and then really talk about the issues we're talking about now. That's what I'm saying. Sorry, UKIP needs more than that. UKIP needs to develop infrastructure. It's not got it for canvassing.
I think we've probably done it, though, haven't we, guys? I mean, you know, I'd say we've put our positions across fairly well, and you know, I don't think we're going to convince each other too much. I don't think either of us have convinced either the side of anything, other than I always listen to someone if they've got the voice of caution before I'm going to do something which is risky. It doesn't mean I'm not going to do whatever it is I believe that's risky or right. But I would definitely, it's always good to hear the voice of caution and moderation. But, you know, sometimes I feel you have to do what's right, even if, you know.
I'll tell you what, let's all have a minute. Let's all have a minute to close off our argument. Let's take it in turns. Each have a minute to close off our argument. No, come back to one. Just close off your argument in 1 minute, and then we'll end the stream.
Well,
that'll round it off nicely. So, Danny, you go first.
Okay, so the crux of my argument is to keep talking about what we're talking about, but play it smarter. We have to think critically about the decisions that we're making, the direction that we're going down, and the people that we associate. If we don't get those right, no one's going to listen to us, no matter what our principles are. We have to play it smarter.
Fair enough.
Okay, this is what I believe. First of all, number one, get rid of all the baggage I've talked about. Number two, ensure that every branch has an operational website. Now, that website needs to be like a tank, and the shells it fires are blogs onto social media. Those blogs will then become bespoke leaflets that will then go on stalls that we need to organise regularly once a week. We then need to hit local government and get electoral information on directed canvassing. I'm talking about big organisation, and the organisation for UKIP needs to be done by an ex-naval officer called Ben Walker. Hopefully he wins, and then it starts happening, and we get into power by doing that.
Go on then, Reece, you go next. I'll wrap it up. Seems like it was my idea to do this rant.
Sounds good to me. I believe that Batten was the best leader this party has ever had, or, well, yeah, I'd say the best leader this party's ever had. I think the election results under him were the best results we've had in a very long time. Local elections saw the biggest game we've had in the last 6 years. The polling is the highest we've been in several years. Everything about Batten's leadership, if you look at the hard facts, shows that it worked, shows that it was popular. The principles he held were believed in by the public. And I think that Batten should have been allowed to stand for leader. Batten was a valid choice for the membership. There is no rule in the party constitution or rulebook that he's broken. He was a perfectly valid candidate, and it was a political decision by the NEC to block him. It was unjustified, and frankly, I think my final point here would be, whoever the next leader of UKIP is, their leadership is illegitimate, because it was not a fair election, because the members were not given the chance to vote on one of the candidates, which was Gerard Batten. If Gerard Batten had been defeated by Walker or Hookham, fine, fair enough, he lost. But the members haven't been given that choice. So that's my last point, is even if Brain wins, I think whoever the next leader is, their leadership is illegitimate, because Batten should have been allowed to stand.
Fair enough. There you go, from the youngest and most savvy member of UKIP. Some of my kids are starting to fight now, so I'm going to go and sort them out. It's been great chatting, and I'm really grateful that you guys have, come on board. And I think it's been really great from first web stream thing for me. So probably nothing I haven't already said, but I think I more or less agree with 90% of what Reece is saying. But I also think that there is cause to maybe have really seriously consider the tactical and strategic approach to moving forward. And I think sometimes that I'm not sure I'd go quite as far as Reece is saying, say what you want, say what you I think everybody there has to be limits to everything. There's limits to free speech. There's no such thing as perfect free speech. We all have moderations, and and I think in order to succeed, I think UKIP has to take the very strongest and most robust approach to Islam, to immigration, to all of these issues. But I think if it does it in a too blunt a way, and I don't really know whether Batten has. I've not been in the party long enough. I think his manner is a bit abrasive. But I like people who are a bit grumpy. It doesn't put me off them personally. But I think in order to succeed, you do have to be savvy and smart and have strategy. And it doesn't mean just anything you say because it's free speech, therefore it's valid. Or you do have to consider the media perceptions to an extent in order to win the battle. In fact, you have to consider everything in order to win the battle. So you don't necessarily have one totally fixed policy. I'll say exactly what I feel like when I feel like it's free speech, man. You're not necessarily going to win with that. So I maybe just trim off the edges of some of the things Reece says, and then just take a couple of percent of what Mike and Danny are saying about really thinking strategically in order to succeed. And so yeah, in that respect, I think possibly Richard Brain, who has a very sort of, from what I can tell, a lovely manner and everything, and maybe he's with Batten in the background, with his knowledge and expertise, I would hope that, and as along with the other leaders as well, just to be sort of Mr. Diplomacy, I think every other one of the candidates has got something brilliant. I'm not sure whether I see them as leaders, but like Mike's talking about, hitting all these parliamentary whatevers with this naval approach. I mean, it sounds great to me, and I really hope that the party stays together, and all these, and Freddie Vatcher's obviously got lots of brains, even if he talks too much and he looks like a Bond villain, but he's obviously got stuff to bring to the table.
I think that's probably a minute up.
There you go. Yeah, sorry that I went on a bit. Anyway, I just trying to close it as well. So sorry if I hogged the extra minute, but that extra time was me wrapping things up and just saying thanks, guys, and sorry everyone else if they're still listening and they've got this far, but thanks, and I hope we can do it again and maybe move.
It's been great.
Thanks for discussing it, guys. It's been a really good debate.
Yeah,
really enjoyed it.
Okay.
Well done.
Right, well, Kentley, quick text Kentley, tell him to switch it off. Kentley, switch it off. We're done. What do we do? Press the button. Somebody press the button.
Well, I think
we just all simultaneously switch our laptops off or something.
We'll all leave the studio now, and Kentley will switch it off very shortly.
We're not doing God Save the Queen. There we go. Like
He's gone.
Quick round of whoa, Tommy, or anything. No. Go on, then. All right, then after 3, switch it.
All right. Well, let's all leave now. Cheers, guys.
All the best. Nice one. Thanks for chat. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.